Here we go.
No, they're helping somebody jumpstart their car.
Oh.
Yeah. Alan and Tyler.
Should I wait?
Tyler.
I'll try not to say anything important. All right. Carburetor stuff. All right, I have got like, I don't know, 8 some pages of notes here. I'm looking through going, it's a little redundant, and I've kind of already covered it. So I'm going to go kind of quick through this, just hit some of the stuff that I believe we've already hit. Even some of the stuff, I'm like, well, that really was a different class. We already did that. So, you guys do your good deed?
We tried.
All right, temps. Temperatures. All right, we've talked, I think, already about this, about another class, but cylinder, head, temps for CHT, cylinder head temp, CHT. So unlike cars, we have to manage our cylinder head temp in aircraft engines. You don't really think much about that in the car. All you look at is water temperature. But most of our airplanes don't have water temperature. We have a cylinder head temp, and that's the thing that we're going off of. That, and to some extent, the oil temp. All right, so CHTs should be kept say under 400 degrees. I've heard some people say that Lycoming should stay at 400, Continentals as low as 380. That is clearly not the red line for aircraft. I'll write that. So TCM, Teledyne Continental Motors, 380 degrees be red line, and Lycoming 400. That is not the red line. Let's see. So the Cessna 182Q has a red line of 435 degrees is their red line. It's a red line. It's a long way from 380. But once you start getting up in the 400 degree range, you start having problems with metallurgy and doing damage. The Lycoming, oh, sorry, not Lycoming, the Cessna 172 S, their POH says 500 degrees max. This one's got a Continental. This one's got a Lycoming in it. So let's see. We talked about EGT, which stands for. Okay, as long as everybody's good with that. Usually measured. We'll put that exhaust gas temperature. Exhaust gas temp or EGT. Again, unless you're actually measuring the gas going into a turbocharged engine's turbocharger, the actual number is irrelevant. It's just a reference number. But usually it's measured 2 to 4 inches after the cylinder. So 2 to 4 inches down the exhaust stack. You drill the holes, you put in the probes. It said actual number is not relevant. It is not relevant. Doesn't matter what it is just is what it is. Peak is peak, off peak is off peak. But you're going to see temperatures somewhere in the range of 1200 to 1700. And as I've already said, the mixture will definitely have an effect on cylinder head temperatures. All right, we looked at that. Where was the worst spot for cylinder head temps? Remember? About how much? No, where on the charts and graphs was?
Oh, 25 degrees.
Rich, how much Richard Peak?
25 degrees.
About 25 to 50 Richard Peak, yeah. All right. Let's see. look at this while we think about this statement. 'Cause I'm not sure how I feel about it. Exhaust gas temperature can be thought of as how much heat energy is wasted out of the exhaust. True or false? Believe it or not believe it?
What'd you say?
Yeah. Wait, what? Their test? Exhaust gas can be thought of, exhaust gas temp can be thought of as how much heat energy is wasted out of the exhaust.
True. Yeah.
True.
Kind of heat is in there.
Or not absorbed through the cylinder.
Yeah, to an extent. Sometimes if you look at it that way, it's so looking at that, then this is the greatest amount of heat energy wasted is right here,
Yeah.
which
Which is also giving you your most power.
It would be
no,
giving you
most
best
power is
power.
here. Best break, yeah, to an extent it's true. To an extent, certainly.
If you have your cabin heat on, well, then it's okay.
Then it's, yeah. That's so wrong. Okay. All right. But anyway, that's the statement that I got from somebody. For any given power setting, you can increase or decrease EGT by moving the mixture. True or false? For any given power setting, you can increase or decrease the EGT by moving the mixture. There we go. True. All right. Power ratios. I think we pretty much covered this one. Looking at this chart right here, power ratios. Let me see. I got EGT. Yeah, we covered this pretty well, I think. True or false? Stoichiometric does not necessarily produce the highest power.
True.
True. And why is that?
Depends on the engine.
Does depend on the engine. Why does it depend on the engine?
Every engine is made different.
It's a closed space.
Okay, closed space. So we can write that stoichiometric. Stoichiometric mixture does not necessarily produce the best power. Stoichiometric mixture is how much? 15 to 1. So why? This is due to imperfect FA, which stands for what? Fuel air mix in the cylinder. And also due to incomplete scavenging of exhaust gases. What does that mean?
Not all of it exits.
There you go. Not all of it exits. Still got some exhaust rolling around in there. Not a good thing. So best power, or the most power, is produced about where?
75%.
Nope. 100% for thinking that. 100% is always better than 75%. The most power is produced with a mixture of about what?
8 to 1?
8 is our richest, 18 is our leanest, that'll even burn. 15 is stoichiometric, so about
13.
we'll go 12 to 1.
12.
12 to 1. Is that richer or leaner than stoichiometric?
Richer.
Got a little bit more fuel. Does it? Let's see. We have 8 to 1. We have 18 to 1. So it's 8 parts air to 1 part. So it's got quite a bit of air. This has not so much air. Huh? I mean, sorry. Way more air.
Has more air.
Sorry.
It's like, hold on.
Yeah. Have some more coffee here. It's decaf. It's not working. So if I had 1-to-1, that'd be a lot of freaking gas, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So we can say this is our rich side.
Yeah.
This is our lean side. Got 15-to-1 here. And 12-to-1 is going to be over here. So 12-to-1. So 12-to-1 is a little richer. All right. All right, we talked about EGT, peak EGT, best power mixture. How would you describe best power?
Most complete burn.
Most BTUs extracted.
There you go. What does it mean to the pilot? Say it again. Yeah, I could argue that one. If I want to climb very fast, which setting do I want on my aircraft? Economy, best power, best power. That would be this is the most power you can get. So best power is going to be max horsepower. That's go fast. Where's best power? Blue line, best power. Right? So, just happens to be about, let's see. It's right there. So that'd be about 1525 we decided. So best power would be right about there. So that is 1375. So I'm going to do some quick math. We are how many degrees rich of peak? You got a calculator? Don't make me do it.
What you got? What you got?
Well, it's 25 plus 50 plus 50 plus 25, so 100 and 150?
Yeah.
150 what? Talk like a pilot. Rich. Keep going. Of peak. 150 degrees rich of peak.
Gotcha.
So best power is achieved on this chart at
150 degrees,
150 degrees ROP, rich of peak. Rich of peak. That's all I got to say. Everybody's supposed to know what you're talking about. Everybody follow? Okay, best power. That's our max horsepower. That is go fast. That chart made it 150 degrees ROP. That's just that engine at that power setting. So don't take that as, but it's probably pretty accurate as across the board. All right, let's see. Best economy. How would I describe that? Is my max what? What would you say? Maximum efficiency? Okay.
Max efficiency.
Max efficiency. That would be go far. All right. You can cheat and look over here, but which one of these charts am I going to look at for my best economy? Which one of these lines? Top, second, third, bottom. Bottom. Right there. That's my brake specific fuel consumption is best. And according to this chart, where am I running on that one? So that's 25. That's 50. So it's 75.
Lean.
There you go. 75 degrees LOP, lean a peak. Can I do that in a carbureted engine?
Yeah.
So this is probably a fuel injected engine, right? You know how you can tell for sure that's fuel injected? It says right there, IO.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, fuel injected engine. Start running lean P. That's best. All right. Okay. And I already talked so much about EGT, I could probably skip the next page or two. Yep, I did. From peak, you can enrich in the mix, drop the EGT till you're rich. From peak, you can lean it. Oh, yeah. When I do a magneto check in my airplane, which we do about, what RPM? 18 for you? 2. I do mine at 17. What's a magneto check?
See if the magneto works.
Yeah, so we take the airplane, we're going to run it up to about 1700 RPM, 1700, turn off one magneto, go back to both, turn on the other one, back to both, make sure they both operate independently, and that, because otherwise, the engine's going to run and one could be completely dead. So if you don't shut off each one individually, make sure it runs on one, make sure it runs on the right, okay, make sure it runs just on the left, okay, we could take off and not even realize that it's only running on one mag, because you wouldn't notice. You'd think, it runs a little different.
You notice
So,
once it go out.
what's that?
So you'll notice once it goes out.
Yeah, if you lose that one, you're like, oh, that's right, I have another one. And you won't. It just they all quit. All right, when I do a mag check, and I'll watch down here at my EGT. Well, first of all, I do a mag check. When I go to one mag, what should I see in my RPM?
Go up.
Should drop.
Yes.
Normal drop would be about 150 RPM. That'd be about normal. Try the other one. It'd be about 150 RPM. Should be not much more than about a 50 RPM difference between the two. All right, so you can see the RPM drop. But if I watch my exhaust gas temperature, it will go
Up.
up. Why does it go up?
Less efficient burn.
Less efficient burn. We're on the right track. It's burning slower. So instead of instead of lighting off the flame front at two places and a meeting in the middle, you're lighting it off on one, and it's got to burn all the way across. If you think about it that way, it takes twice as long to burn. So if it takes twice as long to burn, still, you can say, well, it's still burning-ish when the exhaust valve opens, or we're just not as efficient. So it goes up 25, 50 degrees. So you can see it just instantly, those little blue tick marks there, pink, they just pop right up. And you can look at all 6. Yep. If one of them went down, what would that tell me?
Oh, spark plug or?
Yeah, a bad plug on that engine. Or that engine. Yeah, on that engine, on that cylinder. So, okay. So, all right, we got that. Let me see, best power. Okay, we talked about finding best peak power. And we can do this at any RPM setting. How do I find the peak power mixture for any RPM? All right, how do I do it? I got a fixed pitch propeller. Or a constant speed running at,
Set your RPM to, find the RPM that you want, set it.
okay, so let's say I want you to find peak power for 1200 RPM. Probably not in the air if you're doing that.
So pull your throttle until you're at 1200 RPM and then lean it out until it runs rough and then push it back in a little bit.
No. Very close. But remember, pulling it out until it runs rough and putting it back in what you're really doing is you're really finding kind of the leanest you can run it at that point. Because you've leaned it until it doesn't run well, and you push the mixture back in until it runs okay. That's the leanest that engine will run. Not best power, but very good.
Or was it you lean it out until you see it drop in RPM?
You see,
No.
you see it peak.
Or, yeah, the peak
Yeah, you were getting there. You just had to finish what you thought.
Yeah.
Pull it back, and you watch the RPM come up. And when it starts to go the other way, you went too far. Go back just a little bit. So if I set it at 1200 RPM and pull the mixture out, and I see, ooh, look at that. It just went to 1250. Now 1249, 1248. Okay, go back to 1250. That was best power there. Sure, the RPM went up. It's supposed to. Right? So I'm not going to ask you to find best, or I guess you could close the throttle a little bit and go back to 12, but that's not the point. The point is at the throttle setting you're at. Where's best power? All right. Okay. What if I said, what's best power for RPM? What would you do? What's that?
Is that not what you just said?
Same thing.
Yes. Do the same thing. What if you're adjusting the carburetor outside on the mixture adjustment screw?
You have to have two people.
It's helpful to have two people. Yes, it's hard to run an aircraft and get out and.
Is that your idle?
Yes, that's idle. Anything below 1,000, considered idle.
Okay.
It's a fast idle at 1,000, but it's interactive. Everybody, come on.
You just
There are no wrong answers.
Screw it all the way in, then screw it back out by 1.5 turns.
Okay, that's where we're going to start. That's where we start. Now we'll start up the engine. Now what are we going to do?
Pull back the mixture and
let
see
it
if
run.
pull back the mixture and see that there should be a 50 RPM increase, and then
Then die. Then die. That's what you're going to say. Okay, that's how we check it. What if I'm standing out there on our little ground power unit where you have all the instruments in front of you and the carburetor right here? What am I going to do? The machine that you guys are going to use, it's called a ground power unit.
Yeah.
And you're going to have your carburetor mounted on that, and you're going to start up this engine with your carburetor.
Yep.
And so how are you going to figure out where best power is?
We're gonna look at manifold pressure and EGT, but you said EGT doesn't work as well.
Not at that low RPM. They're usually not set up for
So
that.
manifold pressure.
Okay, so remember, best power isn't a function of, it's hard to do with EGT. Because if we looked at that chart, where did best power come in? It was like, for that engine, it was like 175 reach a peak.
Yeah.
So you don't know until you set up a chart. You don't have a chart, so you don't know anything. EGT is not going to be helpful for figuring out best power. Okay, so you finished your Stromburg, you put it on the test stand, you started it up,
Lock the throttle.
lock the throttle at 500. Now what?
Stromburg will walk away.
if you're watching the manifold,
Okay, you can watch the manifold. What do you want the manifold to do?
that's where I haven't. that's where the tough part is, figuring out which way it goes.
More suction or less suction?
So you want it to drop?
What's that?
A peak low.
Peak flow?
Low.
Peak low. There you go, peak low.
Lowest pressure is the best
The
pressure.
highest value.
The highest vacuum, which will be the lowest manifold pressure. So, say 15 inches.
Yeah.
So you'll screw that until it, we're at 18, 17, 16. It's not going to be that much, but 15, then starts going the other way, starts climbing again. You've just left best power. What should the RPM do?
Increase.
Should increase
And then drop.
and then drop. What is it you're adjusting to make it do this, though? Idle mixture. Now, if it's a Marvel Schebler, which we'll get into later, you can actually do it with a mixture, but that's not the point. So, okay. It might be a little tough for you to get now, but when you get out there, when you have your carburetor done and you go out to the ground power unit to run it, these are the things that you need to know before you get there. It will just frustrate you and you won't know what you're doing, and you'll spend 3 days sitting there running that engine pissing everybody off behind you because they're waiting for it, with you just turning screws hoping that something works. And then you go, hey, I think we got it. And I'll come out and just ask you exactly what you did. And, oh, so, you know, it won't work. So don't do that. Know what you're doing. It's not hard, you know. And if you don't know, just, hey, you know, run this by me again. Okay, peak power, leaning in flight. We've talked about that. Why do we lean in flight? Why?
Better fuel economy.
Fuel economy?
Outside pressure.
It's probably the number one pilot reason.
Outside pressure decreases.
Outside, so we need to
We need to
lean to,
add more air.
Balance the measurement.
Down.
yeah, compensate for the loss of air,
Okay.
because it's going to just run richer and richer and richer until we get up. It is understood that most pilots, I was taught, if you're below 5,000 feet, do not lean. You don't touch that red knob until you get to 5,000 feet. You touch that red knob below 5,000 feet, probably what's going to happen is the engine is just going to explode in front of you. Most likely. Am I wrong about that? I don't know what you guys were taught, but,
Three.
huh?
I think my instruction was 3. Well,
It was 3, yeah.
don't worry
You'll,
about it.
now, in all fairness, if I'm if I'm below 3, I usually don't lean, but yeah, I kind of do actually anymore. I'm like, hey, it's fine. When I'm back at 65% power, it's just not a big deal.
I don't know, all my flight times in a helicopter, and you don't touch the mixture.
Yeah.
It's full rich all the time.
Really? I don't know much about the flying.
For 22s, you run full rich all the time because,
They have a compensator on it, I think, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
but because of all the other inputs that you have to put in, because you've got the rudder pedals, you've got the side click, you've got the collector, you can't focus on that as you're going up and down through the altitudes, and should the engine quit, you don't have enough, you're a rock falling out of the sky at that point. You don't have enough time to go through a checklist and find it.
Okay. Scary thought. I've already noticed how well you are at taking off from executive in a stolen helicopter, so. I'm just joking. You know.
They're still looking for you. It's you.
FBI shows up.
All right, so the reason why we lean in flight, conserve fuel, keep the engine running smooth because it's going to get richer as we go up. Prevent an overly rich mixture as we climb. You're just losing power. You're just throwing it away because you're just falling off the power curve. Next one. Yes. As you get richer, it's just going this way, and we waste more fuel. Horsepower starts dropping anyway. So there's no point in it, unless you're just happy wasting fuel and you want, low EGTs, low cylinder head temps, which, again, there are a lot of mechanics out there. I will tell you this. You just talk to them about running lean of peak, and they will just go off on you. You're just destroying your engine. It's just still out there. I would say most people believe that lean of peak destroys an engine and will definitely detonate, and running 25 to 50 degrees rich of peak is your best spot. I am different. I believe in about 175 to 100 degrees rich of peak if you have to. Lean of peak is good. Cool is cool. I just don't want to go lean of peak if I'm at high power settings. So what is considered a safe power setting? What percent power? 65 is what I say. So, okay. Let's see. And preventing excessive lead contamination. So let me see. Yeah, we covered the red box, red fin theories, CHT. And remember, detonation happens when we put our peak, our PPP, our P cubed, so our peak pressure point, too far advanced. And so as that piston is still kind of coming up, with the peak pressure there, that's really bad. So the way we move the peak pressure point is how? Remember? Whoops, that was the one. So our peak pressure point is managed by time And the only control we have over time is which knob. I know, actually, as I said, throttle is time. Throttle and RPM, and the red, which is burn time. So the slower the engine's going, the easier it is to manipulate the peak pressure point without problems. Faster it's going, the more it's going to matter. So, all right. Let's see, EGT, I think I covered all this. Nope, yes, I did. Covered that, because that was that page. Changes on 65%. This is getting a little extraneous, but I said it.
Kevin, could
Yes.
you go back to the prior slide for a second?
Well, the prior slide is that one. Is that what you really wanted?
No, sorry, before that as well. Okay, maybe more than I realized. The chart, that graph.
Yes. I pulled out some leaning stuff from some POHs. The Cessna 150 I had, quote, pull the mixture control out until the engine RPM peaks and begins to fall off. So pull the mixture out until the power peaks and then falls off. Then enriching slightly back to peak RPM. That's what the 150 says. So where am I running it if I do that? You just tell me the line, actually. Green, red, or blue? Blue. Watch the RPM, pull the mixture out until the RPM peaks and then falls off a little bit. So what happened? I went up to best power and then leaned a little bit more than best power and said bring it back this way. So I'm going to run it right there. So that is going to be best power and roughly 50 degrees richer peak on the 550 chart, so that doesn't really count. So yeah, they want you running best horsepower, which makes sense in a Cessna 150 because you need the best horsepower. The Cessna 182 says at 75% power, lean to peak EGT and then enrichen by 50 degrees. So that would put me right about here. No, 25, 50, so back on the blue. Best power. Let me see. Also says operation at peak EGT is only authorized at 65% power or less. So this one, peak EGT, puts me just at peak. That honestly sounds like a better place to run, if you ask me.
Because you'd be running low CHT.
Yeah. Yeah, your cylinder head temps can be a lot cooler. Not a lot. 50, 75 degrees. I have to look at this chart. Not going to be burning, so we still got good brake horsepower. We still got, we're much better at brake specific consumption. So, again, this was written back in 1977 for this one. Quote, operation on the lean side of peak EGT is not authorized. You're not going to get it. It's just not going to go there. So, see, leading and light combing, normally aspirated. This is service instruction 1094. Best power mixture. Lean until the fixed pitch attack, fixed pitched, or airspeed, constant speed. So if you've got a fixed pitch, you're going to lean until you get peak RPM. If you have a constant speed, you'll lean until you hit peak airspeed, which that's really hard to do because it's really hard to hold an exact airspeed while you're doing all that stuff. And you went down a little bit, up a little bit, like oops. Is that?
That's constant speed?
Yeah.
How do you do that then? What do you do instead?
Well, you just gotta really be careful. Hold it really steady. Watch your VSI and don't go up or down vertical speed.
Autopilot. You'll get it right by the time you hit ready.
Well, I used to not have a 2-access autopilot, so I only had a single access, and so it only right and left, and so I was responsible for this. Best economy for the Lycoming. Lean until the engine runs rough. Increase mixture until smooth. That's probably going to put you around peak EGT. All right, let's see. What's the engine roughness probably caused from?
Too lean.
It is too lean, but what's happening?
One cylinders.
Mismatch. Yep. A lot of people tell you that it's a lean misfire, but probably not. All right.
Hey Kevin,
Yeah.
can you go into depth in that a little bit?
Yes. Into which? Into what?
Leave this much.
The
Mismatch. Okay, so we've got, doesn't matter, 4, 6 cylinders, we'll say 4. And so while I'm operating in a normal environment, we'll use my airplane. So in a normal environment, I'm somewhere over here, right? On the blue line. And as I start to go this way, look how fast the power curve falls off. I'm sorry, that's cylinder head temp. Okay, this one, because I don't have my glasses on my top of my head. Look how fast the power falls off. But over here, it remains pretty steady. So when I go to the rich side of things, there can be a mismatch. 6-cylinder. These two are running, we'll say, rich of peak. These two are right at peak. These two are lean at peak. Right? If I got to peak, that's how they would spread out. But I'm way on the rich side of things. So I'm way over here. So all 6 cylinders are running really rich, and they're all running in this area right here. So if they're all running in that area where the brake horsepower is really pretty level, I got 6 matched horsepower out of each cylinder. But then I start leaning it, and I come back, and once I get over to here, I mean, I've got 1 cylinder running here, 1 over here, and 1 down here. So you might feel some roughness in the engine. They used to say that it's a lean misfire. That you went so lean that you have cylinders actually not even running. They're like misfiring. It's just not true, because they now know with really good injection systems and all, that electronic instrument I showed you, the 930, you now know what's going on. Just remember, my airplane is 77, Skylane 2. It only came with, it was an option to have 1 EGT probe and 1 cylinder head temp probe. So, but now everybody's watching this stuff, computer control. Anyway, so once I get over here on this one, so I got, like I said, these cylinders are running 1 horsepower. These are another setting horsepower. These are another setting. It just starts to get a little bit rough. So you got to bring it back the other way until they all kind of even out. If you have a fuel injected engine with matched flow, and every cylinder is getting about the same amount of air and the same amount of fuel, then you can go really lean and it'll still run smooth because they're all the same, which proves that it's not a lean misfire, it's a mismatch in horsepower.
When you say matched fuel, is that the fancier?
Yeah, so you take so my engine's carbureted,
Well, okay,
right? So everything comes up the carburetor and then has to distribute to all 6 cylinders.
Which is why sometimes some are off or some are.
And it doesn't go the same.
Okay.
But if you have a fuel injection system, every cylinder has an injector that is, and when I say, when they come out of the factory, they're the same. But then you go to a place like GAMI, and they'll say, okay, you have this engine and this installation. I mean, they've got it nailed. You want this specific injector goes in number 1. This specific injector goes in number 2. And their serial number, and you have to put a little stamp placards on the engine where the serial number for the injectors go, so you put them back right. COVID, I was working, down there, and they had a injected Continental, and the pilot's just complaining, it runs so rough. I'm like, all right, pop the hood. I'm like, it's got gammies. Bet you any money they're in the wrong cylinders. And sure enough, they were just thrown back in. So I put them in the right spot. And I'm like, try it now. I'm like, dang, it runs smooth.
Put your money in the hand.
Yeah, it was, like they were paying me in parts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I know for aircraft, they're kind of, the engine's the type certificate, or is the certificate Can you convert the carbureted to fuel injected, or is that?
Yeah, yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is, yeah, it's a lot like one of the mods for my airplane is to put like an IO 520 on it. And so to do that, of course, you just buy an IO 520, but you have to convert the aircraft because I don't have fuel pumps. So you have to have fuel pumps, you have to put a header tank. So it's a big deal. But just to take my engine and put a fuel injection system on, I don't think that documentation. Somebody may have an STC to do it, like this is how you would do it, but
At that point, just swap the engine.
yeah, maybe at that point just go buy a Bonanza and just leave it be, because like I always say, these guys are always modifying these 182s. They put the 520s in it. I'm like, the cure for that is to park your 182 and go fly a 150 for another year. Then go back to your 182 with the 470 and you're like, that is awesome. Because that's what I thought when I first got in it. So the point where I think it's no longer awesome, then I'll just be like, in fact, I was doing some research because I wanted to know, because it's the biggest mod for my airplane is everybody wants the Texas Skyways conversion or this other conversion where you take the 470 and you actually just bore out the crankcase and you bolt the 520 cylinders on there. So it's a 470/520. And I'm like, well, God, what, everybody's so into this. And then a 3-blade prop. I'm like, what does it do at that point? And everybody said, oh, man, you get like 1 to 2 knots faster out of the thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's about right. But you get there really fast. You climb, and I'm like, nah, no, thanks.
Cool. How much was that again?
Yeah, it is
What am I
a
paying
lot.
for not?
All right, let's see. All right, just remember, and I think we did cover this, but if I didn't, a byproduct of combustion is what gas? It'll kill you. Carbon monoxide. CO. CO will kill you. If you listen to the podcast that I tell you to listen to, it seems like every 10th one is about somebody almost died because of carbon monoxide. And I listened to, when I went back to Boston, I remember my friend Nathan, he's like, you do have a CO detector in your airplane, right? And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, nope. Went and got at least one of the disposable ones because you're putting that in your airplane. I need you to come back. Because it's cold and you're going to use your heater, and the heater is just hot air going around the exhaust muffler and then coming in. So
That's what I was just about to ask.
it's all it is.
I'm like, how are you pushing carbon monoxide into the cabin? So,
All you need is the smallest of small cracks, and you don't know it.
Wasn't it either telling us the story about that too? One of the more recent crashes where it was a small Cessna, 4 passengers,
That was
and
Phil.
yeah, he went up at some point. They did have a heater, but then he just started circling. They lost contact with ATC and then crashed, and they found out it was just a leak in the exhaust.
Oh, there's a great podcast, the AOPA one, where a guy took off, and it goes through the whole thing, and he talks about how he's so aware of carbon monoxide poisoning. He knows what it's going to do to him. He's like, and I was the same way. I'm like, oh no, if I'm around any exhaust, I get an instant headache. I'll just wait. If I get a headache, I know. He missed every single symptom. Passed out, but he had his airplane trimmed for a climb out, and he just kept going until it ran out of gas, but it kind of kept that attitude. And he woke up in a field, crashed in the middle of the night. He got frostbite. He almost died from exposure because it was.
Survived the crash, but still
could you
passed
imagine
out.
surviving a crash that you didn't know about? And dying? You wake up, you're
Yeah.
fucking shivering.
He talks about waking up, and his first thought was, I don't remember my windshield being that clear, because it was gone.
It was gone, yeah.
And then he's like, and it is awful quiet. And oh my God, I've been asleep. And so anyway, I went out. Yeah. After that one, I'm like, hey, I bought an electronic CO2 thing.
Oh, that's
You guys remember Harry? He just graduated.
Yeah.
He has 3 in his airplane.
Oh shit.
Yeah, electric ones.
Yeah.
And I think 1 on his person. So he's got like 3. Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's see. Yeah, four parts in 10,000. So that's 0.04% is deadly. Colorless, odorless. All right. Let's see. Backfires and afterfires. Now we're getting into some new stuff. It's actually at point 10. Even though we talked about a little bit. Backfire and afterfire. Oh, I was thinking, there's something else I want to say about carbon monoxide. Do you know what the treatment is for carbon monoxide poisoning?
Yes.
It's something about the CO attacks your red blood cells, so it doesn't carry oxygen, and it's got a, I don't know if this is the right term, but the half-life is very, very long. You can't just remove yourself. Yeah, it is that. You can't remove yourself from the carbon monoxide. It takes a long time for it to unattach from the red blood cells. So the cure is treatment.
Oh God, I
More
forgot
carbon
the
monoxide.
tube is called. The
Hyperbaric.
hyperbaric chamber.
Hyperbaric chamber. Have you ever seen a hyperbaric chamber?
It's a freaking nightmare.
I have. That's the shit nightmares are made out of.
Yep.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, well, I drove the ambulance a long time ago, so I'd take people to hyperbaric chamber. There was one at Mercy San Juan, and it would be like putting in a torpedo tube.
Iron lung.
And just like you're gonna stay there
In an iron lung, your head is
At
out.
least your head is on.
No, this
You're
your whole
enclosed.
body's exposed.
This thing is only about that big around, plexiglass about that thick, and they put you in there and they lock it from the outside. And it's all glass, but you're like, holy crap! I mean, you're like this, and it's like that, and they put the pressure on, and you ain't getting out unless they want you out. So, yeah, if you're not, yeah.
It's funny too because you don't think a lot of people don't think they're claustrophobic until they're put into like an environment similar to that. Like they do close space evasion and like fire prevention
Yeah.
training, and I didn't think I would have any issues with stuff like that. But now after just doing a little bit of that, like close space stuff like that, God, it's terrifying.
Yep, I don't like it either.
Terrifying. No, thanks.
Fun fact: that's why they invented MRI machines to diagnose claustrophobia. That's not true.
Yeah.
All right. Backfire, afterfire. Let's take a break and we come back and do this one.
Break.